So again, thanks to candidates for running for the board. As you may have noticed on the letter that I wrote to you guys, volunteering is sometimes a thankless job, and by sometimes I mean most times. It's definitely something that people don't realize that happens behind the scenes, that Emmons Furs, as a 501c3 nonprofit, requires a board to remain operational. So by running for the board, thank you for continuing to help Emmons Furs remain operational. It takes some courage to get to this point, and I appreciate it, every single one of you. Both new people to the board and returning people. And thanks to the audience for joining, for educating yourselves on the candidates that are running this year. Hopefully the things said today will help you make informed decisions of those running for the board. The duration of this should be just under 2 hours long. About halfway through, we'll do a 15-minute break, which then we'll convene and finish it up. The session should end around 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. That's a artifact left over from the copy and paste of this slide deck from last year. The rules are as follows. There will be 15 to 20 questions, depending on how many questions are submitted by the audience, at 90 seconds per question per candidate. The candidate order has been randomized before the session per question to randomize the order of which order you guys answer. That way you guys can't just copy each other's answers for every question. We would also like to thank the community for submitting questions to be asked beforehand. If any members of the public, either remote or in person, would like to submit questions to be asked to the candidates, you may do so by emailing elections@emmonsfirst.org before the halfway point. Any questions about the rules? As I mentioned before, this is being video recorded and audio recorded for the website. For those that could not attend, they can watch offline.
What camera should we be looking at?
You don't have to look at a camera. If you want to, it's right there. A lot of people don't really know where to look, because when I did this 2 years ago, I didn't know where to look. So either you can talk to the moderator, which usually would be me or somebody else, but it's just me this time because the other person got sick, which is fine. I hope they get better. So that person, I think, is in the call. But yeah, you can look at wherever works best for you. 90 seconds is a minute and a half, right?
Yes.
Good to know now.
Any other questions?
Are we allowed to set a timer on our phone so we know how long we're talking for?
You're welcome to.
Yay.
That's a good question. I have a timer set here. If you're getting close to it, I will kind of give you a wrap up. Or for some people that like to talk a lot, I will probably just cut them off.
Already got the timer set for myself.
But yeah, that doesn't hurt to have a timer. That way at least you know how much time you have left in your answer.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to use the whole duration of the time to answer. If you have a shorthanded question, sometimes less is better. So don't feel the need to use the full 90 seconds. Some quick housekeeping things for voting. Voting is going to start on December 15th. Voting will be held via paper ballots for those that don't have online access, and online voting via vote.emmonsfirst.org. A lot of people don't know this, but as candidates, you guys can still vote if you have the 20 hours needed for voting rights. For members of the public to vote, or members of Minnesota First to vote, you need 20 hours of volunteer time or more to vote. Voting cutoff is next Friday. You can report any unreported hours to volunteers@emmonsfirst.org. And if you don't know how many hours you have, or if you're curious if maybe anything hasn't been reported, you can also email the same email to ask if you have voting rights or how many hours you have. Again, that can be sent to volunteers@emmonsfirst.org. Instructional information will be online, but voting will be done online via vote.emmonsfirst.org. You will request voting codes by emailing elections@emmonsfirst.org. And if you are eligible to vote, you'll be given a code. And then this platform is pretty straightforward. So, old screenshot, ignore the candidates on that screenshot. Any questions about that? Results will be announced shortly after voting closing, which will happen at 11:59 midnight on January 5th, 2024. Results will be announced within 24 hours of closing. Questions? And thus we begin. So how this is gonna work is I'm gonna read the question out to you guys. In previous years, have reread the question to our candidates, but since we have a display here, and in previous years we have not had that display, I will not need to reread it, so feel free to view the display for the questions if you need it. And if anyone doesn't understand the question or needs a little bit of help understanding it, without use of your time, feel free to ask to kind of clarify the question. But most of the questions should be kind of self-explanatory. Any questions before we begin? Any questions from the remote crowd? Cool. For the first question here, the voting order will be Kirst, Talon, Rocket, and then Snap. With other organizations such as Video Game Music Con, MFF, Anime Twin Cities, and more, how should MNFers achieve our mission statement and still collaborate with our partners? Kirst?
Part of our mission statement is to actually show us what furry is to other organizations and other people in the community and put out our best foot forward. And some of that could just be done by going to these events, volunteering, and just showing our best nature and showing what furry is, through our arts and our talents and fursuiting and things like that. But other things we could do that would help it for a nonprofit is, for example, help out with software solutions, provide additional, for example, like open source software solutions that we could go out and share between it, shared resources for physical items, not just people and everything else. But just as important is to run panels at these events and collaborate with them, having them run panels to show what their community is like and what their people is like. But at the same time, we run panels at their events and provide our own, saying, hey, this is what furry fandom is about, but also provide things like, this is art, what furry art, here are some of the standards, and even just in general doing art and providing that. And another quick little thing is that we could collaborate together for our own youth programs so we can share our youth because they'll have shared interests.
Talon?
Yeah, so one thing I feel like if we
Oops, sorry. Okay, I'm not gonna do that.
if we had a actual partnership with them, it was mentioned before that we might want to start doing say blasts or newsletters more often. If we could have, say, a blurb in their con book or in their literature that they have that they send out, they could also have, say, a blurb in ours being like, here's partner conventions that we have that you could maybe check out, as well as boothing would be kind of tricky because of it costs money usually to booth at these things, but it wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing to try and have one, because a lot of people like to wander up to booths and be like, what the heck is going on here, just from experience from boothing at other events. And there's a lot of people in Minnesota that are furries or furry adjacent that have no idea our organization or our convention exists. As someone who lived here my entire life and didn't know such things existed. And a lot of them have a lot of overlap with things like video games and anime and just other bigger furry conventions. And so it wouldn't hurt to have boothing there as well, or signage.
Rocket?
Our mission is in promoting who we are as furries and our local community as MNFers. Like Talon said, there's already a lot of overlap between our members who are furries and also partake in these other conventions, events. It would be wise to perhaps we could cross-volunteer. We could volunteer at, say, FurFest or Anime Twin Cities, and then have those staff also volunteer for our events or have other people act as ambassadors. Just to bring more awareness, especially in events that aren't furry-centric, like Anime Twin Cities, to further promote who we are to the community.
Great. Zach?
As of right now, we really don't have a partnership with anyone. We lost our partnership with Anime Twin Cities only because we had a breach of communication over the past year where we found out that we weren't able to borrow items from them for furry migration that we always have in the past. So I think going forward, we really need to start over because I know that Rico's been trying to get us together with Video Game Music Con, and there hasn't been a whole lot of backing of Rico to get that going. So I think that we need to definitely start over, reach out to these folks, because I know that Midwinter Frolic had an ad with Midwest Fur Fest, but I don't believe Furry Migration did. So we need to work a little bit harder of having a better presence within our own community with these organizations and with other conventions as well.
Great. With the launch of the MNFERS Discord platform, membership increased rapidly by 35% within a year. In what other ways do you see the org leveraging social media to attract new membership? The order for this one would be Talon, Rocket, Curse, Snap.
This is a fun question for me specifically to have first. So I feel like the Discord has definitely made it so people are more aware of what events are going on because we can both post updates and ping people with that as well as do events. And people like to keep an eye on that. A lot of people, even though it's encouraged in the Discord to go to the website, have hardly ever gone to the website in their lives. And the only way they keep up to date on things is either through word of mouth or through Discord. So I think continuing to use that as best we can for updates, not only for events, but for things going on in the org, in the future potentially for, because there's been a comment that people want to know more about the people who staff for the organization. So help, like, being more involved that way with staff, I think would help too. And then honestly for things like, say, Twitter, the Twitter has been doing the same thing to promote events the entire time I've worked for it, which is about a year, and honestly doesn't get very much engagement, either does Facebook. And so I think it might be worth looking into not only, say, posting events there, but finding other ways to engage with the community, whether that be like a weekly, something along the lines of, say, a Fursuit Friday, stuff like that, just to encourage people to actually interact with socials more than they already are.
Great. Rocket?
Okay, so I think we can use other existing social media outlets, specifically if we're talking online, streaming and podcasting. I know we used to have the MNFERS podcast, and I know I think we could put a little more effort into that. I think streaming could be a great avenue into getting a new audience, especially in this age of the younger folks who don't necessarily consume traditional media, but instead choose to follow streaming, YouTube, that kind of platform. And then I think on top of that, I think it's really important that we rebuild the website as well. Like Talon mentioned, Discord is where we get a lot of news, but Discord is really like in the moment, things that get lost in the history. It can be hard for members to learn from that, and it's not, there's that barrier of needing an account and needing to join the server that someone new won't necessarily stumble upon. Whereas like an open-facing website that is easy to use and open would promote.
Curse?
So, building upon these things, my personal opinion is we should be looking at like Instagram, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, other social medias that other people are at, and do a plan with those, extend it out there. I think myself, Twitter is going to do something. It's going to be weird, whatever it's going to be. So looking at alternative solutions out there, but it's not trying to stretch. We have to make sure we don't stretch ourselves thin. Redoing the website is critical at this point. It needs to be redone. And the problem is Discord is now this little community that is walling itself off. And it's also just pushing away people. So because your personalities and how Discord works itself, it is a feedback loop. It is there. So your likes are getting to be likes. So as an organization, everything else, and being that it's a registration-based system, if that becomes our main focus, then our nonprofit license, actually our legal being a nonprofit, could be in jeopardy. So we need to actually work on getting other avenues out there for the public that are publicly facing, that are easier things, and through different social medias. And I love the idea of getting a podcast back. It takes work though. All this stuff takes work and talent and teams.
Snap.
Going off a bit of what Kerr said, it's unfortunate we really can't use Discord numbers to give us an actual representation of our membership numbers. It would be really nice to see more people using the website, like Talon said, because that is how we determine what our actual membership numbers are, is people that actually log in and complete their sign-up process. You know, a way to do that, I don't really know if making our website more flashy and fun is the way to do that, other than going with the TikToks, you know, and maybe having a MNFERS member of the month, and maybe it'll go viral and point people to our website or whatnot. But it would just really be nice to see that website to be more useful and more used. That's all I got.
The forums could be really fun.
They can. People just gotta use them. I'm vibrating. This coffee's good.
Please don't be me first.
What is your understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities if elected to the board? The order for this one will be Snap, Rocket, Callan, Kirst.
I really like to simplify stuff. It's kind of like having a puppy. You make
Yeah.
sure the puppy's fed. You teach the puppy things that'll enhance its life and enhance your life as well. And you got to make sure you keep your puppy alive and going for years to come. So really, it's just anticipating the needs of the organization, making sure those needs are met, and ensuring the life of the organization for years to come.
Rocket?
My understanding of the fiduciary responsibilities are making sure that where we're spending our funds, they're going to activities and not just funds, but our volunteer power, shall I say, the patience of our members. Make sure that those are being spent correctly, and ensuring that we still continue to function both today and into the next year, and so on and so forth.
Callan?
Yeah, so can you define fiduciary for me, please, so I make sure that I'm answering the correct question?
Does one of the other candidates want to answer what fiduciary means?
I got Google.
I mean, my understanding of fiduciary is like you're being objective in the best interest for who you're serving.
A simplified version of it is legal and ethical considerations to the organization.
All right. Thank you. With that in mind, it's a lot of, from what I understand, the back end things that people don't see. So making connections with other organizations, making sure, like Rocket said, money, volunteer time, our efforts are spent both on things that help improve the community as a whole. So say events that we know people will want to see, continuing to make it so that the board continues past when we're here, as well as part of being a nonprofit is you have to, or at least an educational nonprofit, is you need to remain educational. If they look at you and they go, what is your educating purpose? They're not going to be happy. So continuing, like one of the questions discussed earlier, educating both our community and the outside community about what we are, what we're doing, so we can also remain a nonprofit status.
Kirst?
This is always a big one. So from my point of view and everything else, the responsibility for me, if I was elected on the board, is to be legal, talk about what are our legal challenges and legal things, supervise our programs and everything else to make sure that we are doing something that is close to our legal requirements. For example, are you educational, or if you're not educational, are you a fundraiser? Those are the two things that you can easily do with a 501c3 nonprofit. Social groups is considered not to be a taboo with 501c3 profits because that's a 501c7 classification for a nonprofit. So you're supposed to be doing more towards education, and there doesn't mean you don't do it. But also making sure your volunteers are being used right, making sure that, for example, my favorite thing is when you hear the word poker tournament, make sure the poker tournament, people understand, if you're going to run a poker tournament, this is the legal requirements for Minnesota. Like, you can't have buy-ins. You have to be Mr. Debbie Downer at that point. It's not fun. This is not about being fun in some ways. It's about being, trying to be the best person and best organization and trying to find that middle ground.
Great.
Time.
What are your plans for educating the public on MNFERS from the perspective of our organization existing, what we provide to our community, the general public, etc.? This one will be Rocket, Cursed, Snap, Talon.
What I plan for educating the public is I'm kind of thinking of a more twofold plan. I think one, we should definitely host more events just to keep for fellowship within the community, but also hosting more events outside in the public view. I don't believe MNFERS or what is furry is going to be something that people stumble upon in their daily lives. But when they see us out in public, it's always asked, oh, what are you doing? Why are you dressed up? And I think just increasing the chances of that exposure is one of the effective ways we can use to educate the general public on who we are as Minnesota Furs, and what we do for those outside the community as well as those within our community.
Kirst?
This is a good question. I mean, it's always one of our general questions. It's part of why we're here as a nonprofit. So, I mean, part of it is doing things like going out to the community, doing programming, and being very public about doing things like romps, doing parades, going out to a zoo, by going out and doing these things, you will start interacting people. We want to show people that furry is not something to be stigmatized. It's not something to be afraid of. So the whole thing about it is be as public as possible and be as honest as possible. By doing that and just showing and being public, just showing people who we are is going to help out on this. For a lot of people, that's how they're going to do. And when people are not going to like it, we have to be or offended or whatever that comes out from it, be angry about it, just don't understand it. We've got to come out and be our best foot forward. We got to talk to them and be honest. I mean, I've talked so many times in elevators with people during conventions because they look at me and being that I'm usually their age group, they go, okay, what the hell is this thing going on here? And one of the things that we can do to help out the perspective is just talk to that one person and change their perspective from being these weirdos with fetish gears in their minds to be, oh, these are just normal people and they're just going out and having fun.
Okay. Snap.
It's another area we've been a bit stagnant on, where we're doing our best to ensure that our members have the best time with meets and with conventions and whatnot, but we haven't really done anything community outreach, like as far as, like you mentioned, being in parades or even setting up a night where MNFERS can, as a group, go and help feed the homeless, or just something that's outside of our inner circle. So it is an area that we can improve upon. to basically get our faces out there saying, this is what we are, this is why we're a 501c3, and this is why we exist outside of just wanting to do things for ourselves. So it'd be nice to have a little bit of a boost to see if we can't get something like that going in the next couple of years.
Helen?
Yeah, so I had kind of mentioned it earlier, but I have experience on a different nonprofit organizations board, and one thing that really helped get members is going to various events, even if they have nothing to do with what your organization is about, and setting up a booth there. For example, there's a day during the Renaissance Festival where nonprofits and the such can go in the main green and set up booths, and people will walk through and see what people are there for. And if you have, a big eye-catching banner, which we have some pretty cool banners, people are going to walk up just to even see what we're doing there. And it's a really good way to engage people in conversation, because if people are walking up to your booth, it's because they want to know more things. And it could be someone across the way goes, hey, that's a furry thing. I'm a furry. Why is there a furry thing here? And they walk over and they go, whoa, I didn't know this was here. Or, people in the general community that aren't furries will walk over and go, hey, I have heard insert thing here. Is that true? And also, if we had, say, people in suits there, it would be more eye-catching, and it would be a good example to be like, hey, you just see negative things about this, maybe. Here's why I have this suit. Here you can take a look at it to see what it's made of. I think, too, if we have... there's a lot of events, say, in the metro that are, like, Art-A-Whirl, we wouldn't necessarily apply to, but, like, events like that it wouldn't help to be included in, or things like parades that are not huge events, but enough that people could see us. Or, like, Pride.
Okay, answers. Nonprofit groups require funds to remain operational. What is your proposal on ways to provide more revenue streams for Minnesota Furs? The order for this one will be Kirst, Talon, Rocket, Staff.
So, one of our biggest revenue streams is furry migration. It's to ensure that furry migration is long-term and is stable and is around forever. But going for other ones, and the thing is that it's very tricky about this stuff. Because, for example, a lot of people will say merchandise. Well, then we get into sales tax, and then you have to discuss, because you're now doing that, what part of the Minnesota furry migration becomes sales taxable. I don't like that. I like the idea of doing small events. I hate cake sales, cookie sales. That's fine. But fundraiser can be based on getting rights. Could be a video game tournament. People donate for amount of into it. You have to watch which video game tournaments you do and everything else for legal liability. But there are a couple of them that you can do with that. But you can have just general, let's say, bring an artist in from out of town and have them do training for people, and I'll have a day-long training session and do a $40 to $80 head on those, and that's going to do things. To be really honest for stuff right now, it's getting more revenue streams is important, but at the same time is understanding how to spend those revenue streams.
Talon?
One thing, the artist thing, I have seen in the past folks have potentially had the idea of say at like a picnic or an oval or something, if you donate X amount of money, maybe a volunteer artist would be willing to like doodle you a thing or do a small piece of art, not as a commission to them, but as a donation to the organization. And I feel like that is something, because there are artists that I have seen who have been willing to do that just as a volunteer, so that could be something that could be utilized as long as we make sure that they're not getting overwhelmed. We're not taking so many that they're going to drown under it. I do also like the idea of, say, having someone come in and do essentially like a seminar or like a talk about things that might be interesting to the community. And you don't necessarily, you do a donation to be able to get into it. It could also be things that are a little bit outside our community, like in the past, I know different organizations have done like, a lot of you have pets. What if we got like a decently known like trainer or something to come in and tell you how to do stuff with that? You like writing. What if we got someone who knew things about writing to do stuff like that? But I really think using the volunteers who are willing to volunteer is going to be really helpful.
Rocket?
So I think one of the things that I know for sure off the top of my head that we can do is leverage some of our existing avenues. I know we have a huge audience on Discord. Discord recently started doing server subscriptions where people can pay for an exclusive membership that goes directly to the server operator. We can put together a team to create content and figure out some way that we can monetize that to leverage our existing member base on Discord. We can use our community to do things like live streaming. There are already very popular events like Awesome Games Done Quick that do these charity events that people donate, and perhaps they whoever's streaming it can do something special for whoever's donating. We can partner with another organization to maybe they can match funds. It's really just getting out there and just asking businesses and other organizations to do these things. Also, where else can we explore? When I was in high school, for my choir, there was a lot of fundraising that we had to do as well. We did raffles with prizes that were donated from other businesses. Chipotle would have these nights where if someone showed up with a flyer, they would donate a portion of their revenue to our organization. And so, what are things that we can do in that and translate it into our organization as MNFRS?
Snap?
Over the past 7 months, I've been pretty fortunate to learn the ins and outs of funding and what we spend money on for MNFRS as treasurer. And what's been really cool is that Allie, with our events department, came up with an idea of maybe at our oval meets or at our holiday parties, we could have like a dealers section. Of course, finding a room big enough to have a dealers section, as well as the rising amount of people that show up to our meets, it has been a bit of a challenge. But being able to sell spots where dealers can come in and sell their wares or whatnot. Another avenue that I have on my list to explore the legalities of is maybe 50-50 raffles at these meets where people would buy 5 tickets for $1 or whatever. 50% would go to the organization, 50% would go to the person. We are fortunate as an organization that we are in the black, where we are able to pay our bills and make sure that we have meets. But as we go forward and we want more meets, more gatherings, more things to do, more community outreach, we are going to have to bring in more funds. And a lot of that, thanks to the community, they do support the organization, which is awesome. We have talked about grant writing in the past to help the organization with larger things down the road, like hopefully having our own space to live in, like an office or whatnot. But that is something that has yet to come to fruition, so hopefully we can get that going.
You're taking on all you guys' answers. You only hit the 130 minute. If elected to the board, how will you handle yourself publicly when and if approached by the general public wanting to know more about us? Snap, Rocket, Talon, Curse.
Well, the people I talk to know me, and they're like, if I'm affiliated with something, they know that it's a good organization. So I don't really have to say much. But what I like to do is I like to talk about our membership, like how many we have. Based off the website, we have over 500 members that we reach out to and invite to meets and to gather people together. And folks know, holy cow, my brain just turned off. But I would assume that if I'm not hopped up on coffee, I would definitely reassure the positive merits of the organization. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to have calm down here a bit. Next.
Brain go brrr.
Maybe I need some of that coffee.
Rocket?
I think first and foremost, if I'm approached by the general public, I think the most important thing is not to talk about who we are as Minnesota Furs, but what we do for our community members. And while I understand that, education, educating the general public is kind of our mission statement and our primary objective, I think it's more important that people know why we get together. And I think I'm having a brain fart too. I think explaining to them, we're just a group of people who share common interests, and really having that fellowship in bringing us together is what keeps us strong as a community. And I think that's something that's really important for the general public to know right off the bat, that it's really just coming together that keeps us strong.
How?
Honestly, at romps and things, we have been, and I have been approached by people, not infrequently, going, hey, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing this? And a lot of times I and others at the event just try to go, hey, we're just hanging out. We're all enjoy either the art or the community of it, walking around. We're from this organization. And I think in public, like for short form like that, you don't want to get too into it because people are going to get bored. And they're going to be like, wow, look at the time, I really want to leave. Whereas if you go, yeah, here's a very brief explanation of why we're out here, why we're doing this, I feel like it gets people more engaged. Like one of our last romps, we had a woman who was very lovely, asked why we were there, came back so she could ask for pictures and stuff because she thought it was really cool, said she hoped she'd see us again at this event. And so I think a big part is making sure you stay positive. You don't want to go right off the bat like, you might have heard really bad things about furries, but I promise it's not true. And instead go from a positive angle of, yeah, we all just really like art and characters and the community that it comes with it.
Great. Kirst?
This is always a good question. And to be honest, I've been doing this before there was Minnesota Furs. I'm sure SNAP has the same level of history on that part. It's most important for me on that when I handle meet people is when people talk to me, I just want to show them that I'm just a normal person. Because there's this one phobia where you get people think you're not normal, but this is normal. This is people who I tell people we are people that didn't remember when we grew up. We also took our friends with us. This fandom is about that, and when we want to be in public, we just need to show that we're just with our friends.
Great. Do you delegate? Do you actively do it? How do you delegate tasks outside of the furry community? The order for this would be Snap, Kirst, Rocket, Talon.
Outside of the furry community, I work for myself, so there's not a whole lot of delegation that can happen out there. I mean, I might ask my husband to do the dishes when I don't feel like doing it, but delegation really isn't all about whether you feel like doing something or not. I mean, burnout's a real thing, where if you kind of feel like you got a whole bunch of stuff on your shoulders, or you've been doing the same thing for years and years and years, you kind of lose a little bit of interest in it. So sometimes to resurrect that passion, take a little bit of that stuff off your shoulders and be like, hey, would you be interested in helping me out with this? This is what I'd like you to do. Are you cool with doing that? Great. Well, that person will come up with ideas and things that you never even thought of before, which is cool for them because it gets their juices flowing, and it might even get my juices flowing too, seeing what they're doing. So I love to delegate, and I love to see what comes of it too.
Kirst?
So I'm going to start with outside the furry community. I'm a lead software developer. I've also been a manager for QA, a QA manager. I've also been a manager for project leading. So it becomes important to be able, with working with teams and everything else, to be able to work, delegate, and give things. Now, on the furry community, the problem I run into is I delegate a lot of times, and then it comes back to me, and then I have to figure out how to redelegate it. And I'm having that problem with a couple of things with getting things going on both FM and MN FERS on for the website, and a couple of things that I've been helping out in the past. And we had teams that were doing it, all the teams left. And then who is holding the bag? I was. And now finding that team that can do it and actually have the skills to go forward. And it's always hard, and because you have to trust people. And trust is one of the key things that every person has problems with, but at the same time, you have to gain it. You have to give it.
Rocket?
I know delegating is something that personally sometimes I struggle with. Sometimes when there's a very particular way I like things to be done, and so I like to do it myself, but I understand that I can't do everything. I spent a year dispatching for Metro Transit, East Zone. Delegating is all I do when I dispatch. We don't necessarily have a supervisor, but we talk internally with the team. All right, today, you're very good at answering phones, so we'll have you on phones and radio calls. I will handle rides that are running late and rerouting. And so that's very common outside of the furry community for delegation that I partake in. And you just trust that the other person will do their job and you do your job. And really, it's all about just finding out, one, what another person wants to do, and two, where their strengths are, and leaving them to do the things that they are strongest at, and understand that they'll get the job done.
Talent.
Yeah, so I try to delegate when I can / when I need to. I kind of like Rocket said, I do like doing things. If I feel I can handle them by myself, I do like to do it, in part just because I like being helpful. But there's definitely things both in and out of the community that I've delegated on. For example, last year, first year of being department head for communications, once the con hit, it gets much busier, and I was lucky enough to have Zest, who's lovely, helping me, and there's a decent amount of like, hey, there's several things that need to go on. Would you be willing to go and cover this dance or do this thing? As well as before con, people like to send me messages that I do not have the answer to. So I go, hey, you should go to this department or this department. And then outside of the community, I work in veterinary medicine. And there is a lot of delegating in that, which is like, hey, I'm dealing with this dog. Can you deal with that dog? I'm not a doctor. Doctor, you need to go do this. So it is not something new to me.
I just want to make a reminder that if anyone wants questions to ask to the candidates, email elections@mnfirst.org, and then we will field them during the break. So I'm not saying this because there hasn't been anything. I'm just reminding people. I haven't even checked my email yet.
Yeah.
Being that Minnesota FERS is a 501c3 educational nonprofit with an educational mandate, how, as a board member, will you actively do programs and ideas that will fulfill the education mandate? The order for this one will be Rocket, Kirst, Snap, Talent.
Oh, all right. So I know, and Snap had mentioned it earlier. I forgot to say it as well. I think outreach is something that we should really do more of. I really wanted to work with Free Geek Twin Cities, for example. They have a volunteer program where they we have a lot of community members in MnFERS who love technology, want to learn how to understand how a computer works. Free Geek, they will give you those tools, how to understand what each part does, while also providing a service to the community. So I think in that way we can have a cross, where each organization can learn more about the other, and while also providing experience and education to both parties. And that is getting more of those volunteer opportunities. I think I wanted to do more outreach with like I don't think Arc Values Village exists anymore, but like Goodwill. I mean, even them helping them sort and tag. I think that is a very useful way to show that get in touch with the public, as well as show that we're a community that will help Minnesota as a whole.
Great. Kirst?
So, I mean, I'm not gonna, you already covered a little bit of the outreach stuff, so I'm not gonna go back on that part. As one of the things of our being a 501c3 education, a majority of our funds are supposed to be spending on the educational mandate. So, I mean, one of the things that I would love to do is, you know, we can also teach our own community things, taking standard skills and stuff that is may not even sound something that the community like budgeting and stuff like that. Sometimes that's very good, or how to start your own business. Those are really good things, but you can teach internally to your own community but some of these things. It's not just external. And I would love on this to teach people on providing, you know, management skills, and also other providing, you know, services like providing software and things like that. And as part of that whole service, it's teaching good development practices, teaching security, keeping things that are useful for other parts of your job in outside of furry. So I'll give my time now.
Snap?
I think we do a fantastic job as it is. I know we do rely heavily on our convention. I know that there are other furry conventions around that have a 501c3 as an educational mandate, and the convention stands on its own to fulfill its needs. Anytime we have a meet or any kind of social gathering, romps, picnics, whatever, you know, the biggest education people can have is social development skills. It's just being able to see people face to face and increase that interaction to gain those skills. That's part of education I don't think a lot of folks think about when they think about Minnesota Furs. The other side of that is that when people meet up in person, they're going to be exposed to ideas and thoughts that they've never been exposed to before, as in they are educating themselves on other people's opinions and what other people are into. So I feel that we do a really good job to fulfill our mandate. I don't really think we have to bend over backwards to figure that out.
Helen?
First of all, that's a really good answer. Second of all, I agree with Kirst that general public outreach is important, but there's a lot of things that we could do that would count as educational just for the members we have already. There is a lot of members, for an example, that have taken an interest in being an artist, but they don't know where to start, or they're intimidated, or they don't know how to use this program or that program, or what supplies they should use. So maybe some of the members of the community who have done art for a while could be like, hey, let's sit down, do an art jam sort of thing. We can help you with skills. There's members who are trying to make their own fursuits or would like to learn. Maybe we could get some of the makers in the community who would be willing to sit down and be like, here's materials that I like to use. Here's the general step order. And with that, I think the convention is great because we have people doing that at the convention. We have the makers coming in. We have like the wildlife segment that has happened before. We have artists that do these things. But I think inner community education is also very important, or maybe even almost more important than general public education.
And with that comes the halfway
Ominous.
point.
Is that pie?
That is Pie Fox, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks to
Yarg.
Yarg, thank
Yarg.
you for the photography credit on that one. We're going to take a 15-minute break. Feel free to stretch your legs and whatnot, and we'll resume. That will be about 1:20 Central. A majority of MNFER's events are established and ran by leadership. What would you do as a board member to help and encourage more community-ran events? The order for this one will be Talon, Rocket, Kirst, Snap.
All right, so I think a big one is, say romps are a lot of times held by members of the community, but they're usually held by the same ones multiple times. And I think a big reason for that is people are afraid to host their own events. I think a lot of people think it's way more intensive than it actually is. I know Allie had done, she did a, like, I think it was Allie, did a, like, how to run an event thing once. It wouldn't hurt to do a couple more of those. Or just, it, like, baldly on the, like, say, Discord and on the website, be like, this is essentially what it takes to run an event. If it's something in a venue, you'll have to discuss with them about, say, like, what it would cost or what we could do there. But things like romps, a lot of times, all you have to do is make sure, based on the rules of whatever park system you're going to, that you're allowed to be there. Then it's just scope out a trail, have everyone go, walk along the trail with them, know roughly where you are. And from experience, it's very easy to run, say, a romp. And I think one of the biggest things would just be tell people, one, they can host events, because I think a lot of people think it's a staff-only thing. And two, it is not hard to run an event. And so get rid of some of that fear of that.
Great. Rocket?
Personally, I know I myself want to do more events. I want to, I'm trying to get an event that would be more like weekly, bi-weekly, just to kind of have more common reoccurrence. But but expanding on that, I think it'd be kind of like what Talon said. I think a lot of members feel like it's something that's too difficult, and I think that we need to make the event process a little easier. And whether that means bolstering the events team, maybe we need like a concierge, for lack of a better term. Somebody who is there to one-on-one with somebody who's interested in hosting an event. If it's their first time, let's have somebody from MinFers who's hosting an event, who's giving their time to the community, walk them through the process. Here's what you do. Here's who you contact. What did you have in mind? And these are kind of the things that I'm thinking of to help you out with your event, and to try to get them started on the right foot, especially for our community members who live further away, and to try to get more, try to get them to get more events where they're from in Central and West Minnesota. I think we just need to make the process easier, and that's just taking the first step with our community members and showing them how to host an event.
Great. First?
I hate this question. And I know this one's coming. So you always never know what positions. So following up with those two, I'm not going to cover some of the same ground that they did. My thing would also be is I don't want just Emmett Furs events. I just want events in general. I wouldn't mind having two scales of events. There's the Platinum event. That is an official Emmett Furs event. That is run under our code of conduct. That is run perfectly under the... But if you just want to run an event and you just want to be a little bit more under the radar and stuff like that, you're not going to get the full benefits of Emmett Furs, but try it. Run the event. You can do it and everything else. If you want the full support, we can get you up to a Platinum later. But first, run something. Just run anything. And if you're doing well, we can make it a Platinum event. Instead of people worrying about, is this going to be good? Is the thing, maybe you have too many people and stuff like that. Just, encourage people to just run events. I don't care if it's Emmett Furs. I just want to see a community filled with events.
Great. And Steph?
Well, herding cats is always a lot easier when the cats are already corralled. And so people, when they go to meets or events and whatnot, they're usually pretty pumped up to be there, which might actually make them more pumped up to want to put forth themselves to participate more in planning these events. So I think that having some kind of feedback form at events where people can write down their name, even if they have suggestions of things that they want to see happen, and then they can leave their contact information if they're interested in trying to bring something like that into fruition. That'd be great. I'd rather have paper forms instead of like a scan where they can scan it and can fill it out later, because they'll never fill it out. So really, it's when people are pumped up that we really want to get them involved and try to involve themselves in it. And people, like others have said, they got to know that there are going to be people there that are going to help them out. Part of that is we've talked about it before, is staff need to be more visible at events so that people know who the staff are and who to go talk to them. And that's something I've been working on, or supposed to be working on. But that's all I got.
Great. What are your thoughts on diversity and inclusion within the board and the organization as a whole? How will you work to promote diversity in leadership and decision-making processes? The order for this one: Snap, Rocket, Talon, Curse.
I really want to steal somebody else's answer because somebody had a really awesome idea on this in the Q&A online, but I'm not going to do it. So hopefully they say it after me. I think, and part of that is people need to feel like they're included. People need to feel like their thoughts and opinions matter. I mean, new people that are coming into our organization need to feel part of the herd. You know, and how to do that, again, I don't want to steal somebody else's answer. Damn, I'm sorry. We need to have like welcoming people like at our events. Yeah, see, that was yours, wasn't it?
It's fine.
Yeah, we gotta have more people be like, you know, these are the folks that you can talk to. They've been around forever, and if you're just coming into the organization, you don't really know people. You got to bring those people in. Let them know that they are welcome and that they're appreciated. And I'm really sorry for stealing that answer, but
Yeah,
it's a
you're
good one.
fine.
It was a really good one. I'm done.
Rocket.
All right. So diversity is I think that's essential to making us stronger. I think Snap made a really great point that just coming together and learning about each other kind of helps fulfill our education mandate. And I think in in a leadership role, I think it's important that we understand where there may be some differences because we may have different backgrounds, and really trying to understand why we have those differences. Yeah, that's all I got. And
Sure, that's fine. Talon?
All right. I have quite a few thoughts on diversity in the community. I think, first of all, we could be doing more to make events more disability friendly. There are several people in the community I know that are either wheelchair users or they can't walk very well. And quite a few of our events are either not very like wheelchair accessible or say a ramp. Things where you need to walk around a lot, which is not feasible for everyone. Looped into that, we've had concerns. I've had people ask me for events that are more accessible by public transport. It's kind of dependent on city, but the Metro has a pretty robust public transport system. And that also loops into, we need events that are friendly for people who don't have very much money. Because some people are going to be left out by events that cost money to get into, or they need to drive and pay gas to get to. And then finally, the furry community as a whole is a very white community, because from what I've read online and stuff, people are not always friendly to the people of color in our community. And I've seen at other, say, conventions that they have like panels run or like parties and stuff specifically for the POC members of the community. And I think that's something we should be exploring more as well.
Great. And Curse?
So, there is, to make a very diverse board, you have to have a diverse community. Building up what Talon said, it is very important that we recognize sexual orientation, race, age, and ADA, disabilities, and money in our membership, and making sure that we're accessible for this. Now, your leadership are supposed to be the greatest donators and the greatest volunteers of your organization. Whoever's putting the most time and money into the organization usually are the leaders of a nonprofit. I don't view that should be the way here. I think we should be looking at, in the perfect world, we should be looking at different types of how do we make it more inclusive for everybody and the main organization. That's going to improve your leadership. Because, to be brutally honest, the whole thing of gray muzzles and stuff like that. I've experienced that for many, many years now. It is not. I mean, my joke is that I was a gray muzzle by the time Emmett Furs formed, and now my crystal is white. It's clear at this point because I'm past the death date. So that's a dated reference too. But at the same time, we need to make a diverse board by having a diverse community, and we need to look at our community in whole.
Great. As a reminder to the public, make sure your mics are muted in the Teams call. Giza, if you have the permissions to mute people, if they don't, do that.
So what you're
Otherwise,
saying is
nothing
that
to
we
me.
need a MinFirst party bus to go around and pick people up.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, it looks like I do, and I'm keeping an eye on things.
Cool, thank you. Appreciate it. Fun one. How do you handle burnout and stress, and how do you help others around you? For this one, who started first last time?
Snap.
Yeah. This one is Rocket, Cursed, Snap, Talon.
How do I handle burnout and stress? That is still something that I myself am learning to understand how I handle burnout and stress. Sometimes I get a lot of anxiety, and so honestly that is still something that I'm still trying to learn. I'm still in that process of my life where I'm trying to learn. But on top of that, how do I help others around me? I think really a big part is listening, and that's something that I'm still I'm getting better at, and I'm learning. I think a lot of people they just want to be heard and understood, and they don't want to be they don't want to hear life advice, or they don't want to hear what you think. They just want you to listen, and I think that is something that's really that's one of the ways that I like to help people is to just listen and to understand what they're going through. When I hear somebody has I used to think that anxiety attacks and things like that were just whatever, it was an excuse. But now that I understand it and I've experienced it firsthand, I understand kind of some of those emotions, and I think that's really just what people want to know, is that they want you to listen, and they want to know that they're acknowledged and they're understood, and I think that would go a long way to helping people.
First.
This is always a good question, and some of the topics have already been covered. My personal thing is that I'm always under stress. If I'm not stressed, I'm burnt out. Because there is two types. Stress keeps me going. Stress is my driver because I'm OCD. I live for stress. There is good stress in life, and there is also bad stress in life. I try to make the bad stress into good stress, and the good stress will motivate me and get me going and things like that. And it's funny because somebody's like, go take a vacation. You realize how much stress taking a vacation is for me? And last night, part of the reason why I got an hour and a half of sleep wasn't because of this, was because I'm probably going to be taking a vacation in January, 2 of them. And I just found out about that I could potentially take one. So I'm now super stressed about that. But for me, I like to, what really helps me is listening to other people. Just like said, I mean, during the convention and everything else, people were getting stressed out last year with the convention, and they're going to me. And I might have not been able to solve their problem, but at least I gave them an ear, and that calmed it down, that gave them an outlet, and that helps people. And sometimes with burnout, I tell people it is okay to stop. It is okay to pause. It is okay to take a break. This is a volunteer organization. We love you.
Open the Costco, I love you. For those that get the reference. Snap.
Having worked for myself for the past 12 years, it took me a long time, but you kind of have to learn when you're experiencing burnout. And when that happens is when you're really not doing anything new with your life. And so part of that is to learn how to recognize that it does take time, and then to have the strength and courage to introduce new things into your life. Like at Furry Migration, I was in charge of registration for about 4 years straight, and I realized I wasn't putting anything new in the department. So with that, I found some new people that could take it over, got them up to speed and got them going. And at this time for Furry Migration, I oversee 8 different departments, and 4 of those departments were all new people that were leaders that year. So part of recognizing burnout of other people is to say, hey, how you doing? You know, just reaching out to folks, not just leaving them out there in the ether to float into nonsense, and just making sure people know that you're there. That's really the way I could see helping people out. But like Rocket Dog said, it's really hard to know when you're going through personal burnout until sometimes it's too late. So as long as you got somebody else looking out for you, that always helps a lot.
Talon?
So personally, at least in regards to say like doing volunteer work here, I think it's good to know what things need to be done right now immediately, and what things, if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, can be put off for a later date. And I don't mean as in like, oh, we should be procrastinating things, but just as a personal example, like, all right, events need to be posted on the website. I'm really tired tonight. Does this thing need to be posted tonight? If no, can it wait till tomorrow? If yes, all right, figure out how to do it in the easiest way possible. I also think it's important for people to have hobbies that are not at all related to the things they spend a lot of time on volunteering or work-wise. So if you are, one thing I see in veterinary medicine, a lot of doctors will also then volunteer with animals on the side, and everything they do is around animals. They burn out a lot faster than those who are like, I'm gonna go play ice hockey, and completely have a hobby disconnected from the work they have to do. And then kind of reiterating what they say, just straight up asking if you can help people with things will help them with burnout, because people don't want to ask for help. They might say things like, I'm so busy, or like, I just have so much to do, but they won't go, hey, I need help. So if you just straight up go, is there anything I can help with? Is there anything I can do for you? They're going to be more willing to take you up on that than if they have to approach you for it.
It's also fun to destroy scrubs in Call of Duty.
Integrity. Typo. Integrity is important as a leader. How would you define integrity? The order for this one will be Snap, Cursed, Rocket, Talon.
You know, I failed vocabulary in high school. I'll give it my best shot. Integrity is basically not having other people do what you yourself wouldn't do. That's what it is to me. And so, that's what I gotta admit here. I don't really know what the definition of that word. So,
Do you want to pause the timer and have the term integrity defined?
that sounds really bad that I don't know what integrity means. Maybe I don't know what ethics are either.
I mean, I had to know what fiduciary means, so.
No, I'll just go ahead and pass. That'll be my answer.
Okay. Cursed?
For me, person that has high integrity is a person that is honest, a person that has a good vision, that is clear on his vision, and that is fair. And I believe that when I talk to that person that is very high integrity as a leader, that they're not lying to me. That is one of the things. Is truthfulness is very important to me in a leader that's very integrity. That they're honest on their goals, and they believe in their goals and they believe in their people.
Rocket.
I would define integrity as somebody who is able to make decisions that are in the best interests as a whole collective for the group, but also being able to make difficult decisions objectively. As somebody who's in a board, the board may have to make a decision that maybe a director doesn't agree with, but as for the group as a whole, or for MinFirst as a group to move forward, they may have to make those decisions that are difficult for them personally, but yeah, I think I got my point across.
Yeah, decisions that might be unpopular.
Yeah.
Talent.
For me personally, I think a lot of integrity is one. Make sure the work you're doing is to what you would consider the standard of like good work. So not going, this is good enough when it maybe isn't, and you would expect someone else to be doing better than what you're doing. Not demanding of people what you wouldn't give yourself. So you can't be like, I'm just going to sit here, but I want you to do 1,001 things. And I also think it has some degree of standing with your morals, and not accepting outside pressures that aren't in the best interest of the community or yourself. So if people are, like, several people are really pushing for something that, say, isn't within our code of conduct, but they really want it done, you can't buckle under it just because people are clamoring for it if it doesn't fit with, say, a mission statement or pretty firm set morals.
Great.
I just realized why I didn't know that word. All I could think of was Integrity Farms.
That's fine.
I mean, it has the integrity in there.
The next one is a question submitted by the community. Again, if you have any questions you want to ask the candidates, either in the room or or remotely, send an email to elections@mnfurs.org. Let's see if the slide inserted remotely properly. It did not. Okay. Do you think that there is something new or different that you would like to see from the organization in guiding the community so that the longevity of its existence is ensured for the next 5 or 10 years? The order for this one will be Talon, Rocket, Kirst, Snap, and I'll read it one more time. Do you think that there is something new or different that you would like to see from the organization in guiding the community so that the longevity of its existence is ensured for the next 5 or 10 years? Talon.
Yeah, so it's something I kind of mentioned in my bio, and Snap alluded to it. One thing that I think would be really helpful in guiding the community is making it more newbie friendly. I know when I first joined, one of my first events was the picnic, and a lot of people are there, and if you don't already know people of the community, it's really overwhelming because you don't want to just walk up to a random group of people and be like, hey, hello, be friends with me. And you don't know where to start, and it can make things feel really disappointing. I know I was actually really sad when I left my first picnic because I was like, I couldn't make myself just go and interact with a bunch of people I didn't know. And I think a really big thing would be having, say at a picnic, this is the table for new folks. If you don't have anywhere to go, here's other people who are new in the community, as well as people who have been in the community, and they can introduce you to the new people. They can introduce you to some of the other people who have been there longer, so you can start making those connections, and at the very least have somewhere to go. And that could be for romps too, just see someone walking by themselves or you haven't seen before, go introduce yourself, make conversation. At an oval, again, have a space that's dedicated to new people. Because I think one of the biggest things we need to do to make the community last longer is make sure people want to join the community after their first event.
Rocket?
I kind of alluded to this earlier. I guess I don't know if it's really counts as new, but I really want to get to like a weekly or a bi-weekly meet. I think I relate to that experience. That Talon had said when I came to my first spring picnic, I spoke not to a single soul, and I just left because I didn't know how to interact with people. And I think having a smaller, more intimate setting, where if we can have a meetup that's once every other week, in a smaller setting that can be a little easier to come out to, maybe for an hour, 2 hours, drawing on experiences growing up. Even though I don't really partake in that side of my life anymore, Wednesday nights was my church youth group, and that was, I think that was a very strong foundation to have a group of people that I met with every Wednesday, just to have some solid foundation in my life that was always changing. And I think we can do something like that for our community. And that's something that I would really like to put forward.
Kirst?
Well, I would like to tell my story about how I met the community and a couple other things, and I do agree with you two, and that's extremely important. Another thing I think is important is to give a goal to the community, and I think that could be done with getting a grant or scholarship program for MNFERS for both and that will help our educational mandate. I would love to be able to do that. This was one of the reasons why we founded MNFERS was this. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get back on the board is to get we were supposed to have this in about 5 or 10 years. And when I left the board from doing it, it just stopped. It stopped us from doing, no one went back, and we kind of reverted back on how we did programming. We reverted back on community outreach and things like that. And this is one of the reasons why I want to get back on the board was this. But I would really love to get for the community to have something that says, hey, every year we give a scholarship for ZOT. Could it be art? Could it be something? Or it could be even sending school kids to Ely to look at the wolves and everything else and draw for the wolves and learn about animals and the culture. And we do that for a school